Krista, are you ready?
We are.
Okay, 6 o'clock, I call meeting to order. Looks like we've got everyone here with the exception of Tony. That's all the board members present. And moving right along to item C, the board financial audit. Looks like it was
Me and Tony.
Jody, yeah.
Unfortunately, why haven't I heard back from Laura and my emails is still including in draft?
But
So while I was multitasking today, I apparently never hit send. Apologies, but I do not have anything for you. I had highly show for me around today, so I could work on work. It's still there.
Well, we'll move right along with Tony's absence then and go to item D, which was review. This was the last section of policies, policy 9000 review. I don't know if anybody had any questions or concerns on that group of policies. Felt like it was the least amount compared to the other sections.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Okay. Hearing none, we'll go to the approval agenda. Got a motion by Nicole for the agenda. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Scott. Any discussion? So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Agenda is approved. Section 3, open forum procedures. So we've got nobody in attendance. We will move right past that one. Down to the consent agenda. Any questions or concerns? Patrick, did you have anything you wanted to cover before?
Yeah, just a couple of FYIs. It is a very extensive list, but typically that happens over the summer months with a variety of contracts, et cetera. I do want to bring your attention to letter W. Letter W is the approval of championship signs. We decided to sell the old signs, and Krista tracked the amounts there. So adding to it, which actually allows us to get a quote for landscaping, and some other things. However, if you happen to see the signs, there was a mistake. And so the mistakes are being remedied because the dates are wrong. So I already got a text message from someone, and they're like, we didn't win basketball in 2012. Yes, we know that. So I talked to Ron as soon as it was discovered, and we're basically putting new graphics over them, but they were installed today. And Chris is working on a thank you, and there'll be a message. So Joe Draxler was kind of the ringleader behind this. And if you saw the signs, which you did with downtown or by the one that was on the fairgrounds, it was pretty bad. And so these are nice upgrades to be able to do that. So just know the other one in terms of I wanted it to be recorded as far as the funds that we made from that, and explain the mistake that was there. The next one in terms of explanation is letter EE. Because we have a newer board, I wanted to outline that in the past, this is something that I've walked into and I think it's a great idea. We just made some tweaks to it, but every year the board has offered up a welcome back voucher, or actually in the past prior to me, they bought like they picked out a piece of clothing and they bought it for everyone. The change we made was we offer a voucher because everybody likes different things, including, everybody that's basically employed by the board. So there is a cost to it. However, I think it's gone over pretty well where they get to buy any item on the BSN store that is GC. So we do one logo. And then if there's any extra, which people often buy more to outfit, they pay the difference. So just wanted to make sure the typical amount that has been, at least in my time, was $50, and wanted to make sure that the board was okay with that moving forward. So if you're opposed to that, please signify that when you're approving the consent. And then letter F, this was actually, we're part of a new program, actually a free enrollment through WRSA. WRSA is the Wisconsin Rural Association. And I haven't been a part of it. I was part of it in Prairie Farm years ago. Through that process, we were made aware of an online mental health capacity for our students. We currently are limited with Rolling Hills, and Rolling Hills is more of an experience-based. They do lack the clinical psychologist component because they're not licensed. And so we are going into works with Cartwheel, which is an online-based mental strategy network, and students will be able to take part in that from a clinical side of things. I personally have seen in Richmond, we had a clinical psychologist in our buildings, one building every day of the week, and it made a huge difference. And so through a partnership, you can see the Rolling Hills Equine MOU, but now we add another layer, which is more clinical based. I think when we talk about it as an admin team, I know I've been surprised with the success rate of speech online, because at first I was very much not really in favor of that, but we were basically forced into that area, but it's gone well. And so I think we do have a variety of kids that sit in the conference room across from my office and speak to clinical psychologists as part of their programming through the county or whatever. So we are using grant funds, the mental health grant from the state to do that. So I just wanted to explain that, which is, I think, a great addition to our toolbox. And the rest are pretty self-explanatory.
Questions?
So there's no cost to the district on the Cartwheel at all?
There's cost, but it's covered in terms of, we get a mental health grant. The problem, if you read her recommendation, well, the problem is that like anything with the state, the funding is not on the forefront. So these last 2 years, the funding was not decided or communicated to us until December or even into the spring. So the mental health grant, we can have it covered, which is a good thing, but it's grant-based.
What?
It's grant-based, but again, it's not, all of you that are business owners, you never run a school like you would your business, where you start.
When is the grant from? Grant money?
That's where it's been identified in December of each year. So we're kind of taking a shot in the dark that will stay consistent with that. But again, when you look at our toolbox, to add a clinical piece, I think is a big step.
But the grant money is up for sure.
Well, as much as anything is at the state level, yes.
So.
For example, I'll give you this example. The state is usually pretty good about the community ed, the grant. That is on the agenda for tonight. They gave us a heads up that was gonna go away, but they gave us a heads up 4 years ago. And then each year it came back. Now we think it's for sure, which it is. So from everything that, in terms of we know about, in the same process, because we don't even know our state numbers until October 15th. It follows the same pattern. So yes.
So my question is so the Cartwheel is for like mental health type thing, right?
Clinical, yeah.
Psychology, psychologist. Is Bonnie Barker the psychologist as well?
She is the school psychologist,
So we have her, we have the
but she's not. So a school psychologist is the one that oversees IEPs and does testing. Does Bonnie Barker have the ability to be a clinical psychologist? Yes and no. I don't know if there's a separate, I guess I've never even, they're not the same. In terms of clinical psychologists, like in Richmond, we signed a partnership with Family Means out of Stillwater. And a licensed clinical psychologist would come to our buildings and meet with kids. Bonnie Barker is not a clinical psychologist, but she is a school psychologist that has the degree is able to, when when Jamie has her RTI process and these kids go through the interventions and they're failing at those interventions, well, then it goes and they look at IEP 504, etc. Well, there's testing that needs to be involved in that. And so once they do that, that's what Barney Park does. Do we have clinical psychologists? Yeah, we have about 120 of them here because that's part of our role as educators. Are we licensed? So I don't know if that answers. You're a former coach, you were a clinical psychologist.
Okay, and then Rolling Hills Equine does the mental, what is
So
their?
they do, I don't know how did we describe it? It's more of a,
mentor partnership with
yeah,
them that gives a student kind of an outlet of somebody to talk to. It doesn't go into the in-depth therapy and the services that some of these kiddos would need. So that's kind of the difference there.
And do they come on site to talk to kids, or do they?
we have a space in the old library, the elementary library that they meet with. We have students that outside of school go there. It's more of a equestrian type of support system with animals and so forth. There's different therapies, but it wouldn't be considered clinical unless it's actually done by a clinical psychologist. And from my knowledge, there is no one on staff that's a clinical psychologist. So it's more of a mentorship, which actually, again, a lot of schools are struggling with because there's not a lot of these places. So this next step is some of those really hard situations where if the kid was in a juvenile detention center and they were required with a clinical psychologist, we now have access to some of those licensed individuals.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing. I think it's, we just have a variety of students everywhere that need that extra layer, and that's what this would provide.
Any other questions?
Was there a board docs renewal in the consent agenda? I thought I had seen it. No, I'm not.
Board docs? No, we are under contract until next spring. I did do a webinar of
Unfortunately.
one out
Yeah.
of Texas.
Mhm. I know, because I logged in at like 6 a.m. this morning and.
But it, yeah,
But anyway,
we're under contract, so, we're working on that part. But
I saw we got an email from WASB.
that's the one that, yeah, I did a webinar with them just to look at other options. But we're under contract with Divergent until next spring.
No other questions, would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Scott, do I have a second? Second by Jody. Any other discussion? As all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Vote by nay. Consent agenda is approved. Administrative reports.
Unfortunately, Erin is ill, and so we don't have a report where she here tonight because of that. So we're move right into Ms. Schaefer.
Mine's really in-depth. I hope you guys are ready. There's a lot there. So mine's very brief. Just a couple things. So been kind of in the thick of things. I always say July is kind of that you're wrapping up one year and working on the next. It's kind of that middle road that pulls you in both directions. So didn't have a whole lot to share. Like I said, just kind of wrapping up end of the year things as far as reporting that needs to go to the state with different funding with like Act 20 and all of that, and then kind of trying to get ready for the upcoming school year. So I know I probably did touch base with it last time, but we do have our implementation training next week already, which seems crazy. So I've invited all of our elementary staff who teach mathematics, plus like our paras, because they do a lot of support with our kiddos. As far as instruction goes, I've really changed their roles where they're not just kind of sitting side by side with them, but they're actually leading small groups under the direction of our SPED teachers. So are invited to that. So hopeful that that's going to be a good day. And we have all of the materials because as you guys know, you approved that purchase in April-ish, May. So all those materials have arrived and they're in the classroom. So teachers are eager to get moving with that. Then just the other quick little update, PTC reached out to me and asked if we wanted to do a summer activity, popsicles with the principal in the park. So we're gonna be doing that on Monday, August 3rd. Just kind of like an open house, an open event, come grab a popsicle, hang out, that kind of thing, just to kind of build that community connection and get kids ready for back to school and excited about that. We'll have a few things to hand out as far as back to school stuff, with school supplies that they'll need, different things, reach out to parents. It's just giving an opportunity to have conversations, see who needs help with different things, as far as school supplies go or anything else. So, I don't know, that's kind of it. But I've been busy, I promise.
But you can see the effects of the consent agenda. All those things take a lot of planning, whether it's the handbook, et cetera. So we just don't have a lot of kids here at this point, but lots going on.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the next one, Mr. Fiesel is not here. He's on vacation. I did want to point out, I sent a separate email. There was a miscommunication. I actually was pleased after I saw it today, but for him to turn around the handbook, and he's actually combined a variety of pieces to the handbook. So this is not, the middle school, high school handbook is not on the agenda. It will be on the work session that we're going to schedule here. However, if you have any thoughts on that, we'd like to get that out. In terms of his update, he has outlined a variety of things that they've been working on. So is there any questions to any of his activities in the first month of his employment?
Good thing to be familiar with as far as the student handbook, as it's onboarding, so.
Based on the list, he's pretty effective in coming on up to speed.
Yeah, no, it's admin wise, I try to be a little more hands off in July so that these people can have some time with their families, because they're here for something nice during the year. But a lot of work has been done in June and July just to get started. So yeah, from the summary standpoint, if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to him on any of those updates.
All right, anything for item D, celebrations?
Celebrations, it's just one of those things. I'll let you go through the pictures. The main thing that I wanted to outline includes the pictures of the building inside and out. And what I wanted to point out was we have spent quite a bit of time in the last 3 years doing a major cleanup within the building to the tune of roughly 13 40-foot dumpsters. What you're seeing now is the next phase of that cleanup, which included outside. And Tim has brought some great suggestions in terms of how we can be more efficient. And so again, there's a variety of pictures of before and after. One of the focuses has been the transition that was approved by the board a couple months ago in terms of using the blue shed as the outside main area, and kind of the focal point of the campus lawnmower and those types of things. In terms of the bus barn, we have gone through 2 20-yard dumpsters of junk, and those pictures there's not an easy way to go through here, but here's a perfect example. We had on top of this halftime room stuff from I don't know when, completely cleaned off now. There was bus seats up there from a long time ago. There was aluminum, so we turned that into Katigers to get a refund. There's wooden, as you can see in the pictures, there's wooden doors, basically a hodgepodge. So we have gone through that and shop to a degree. And then now we're moving these, you can see a little part of it, but these large shelving units will now go to the blue shed to be that center point of our grounds unit. So get a chance to take through and look at the pictures. Inside the building, things have gone really well. They're actually finalizing the floors. The one thing that we started to do was really break down old floors. So if you look at this floor going down the main hallway and then look towards the hallway going to the south, you can see the difference of 15 to 20 years worth of wax and how yellow versus white it looks. So the crew has done a great job. We're gonna have an end of the year picnic to celebrate and thank these kids and staff, because very pleased with how our building is coming together once again, and showcasing the pride that we have. So when you get a chance, look at those pictures. The last one, letter E, is just an update from Melissa. As Jamie and I in the fall will talk about summer school and some of the pros and cons, including we again tried transportation. With the meals, we've had a good turnout during summer school. That has died down a little bit. The good part is Tiny Toppers or Hang Time, which is all one name now, with the handbook that you just approved. With Hang Time, those meals are very much a huge support of that program. So wanted to give you an idea of how many meals we're offering, what reimbursement looks like, etc. So again, yes, it's summer. No, we don't sit in our offices looking at the birds and drinking coffee. There's a lot of planning going on, and the meal part is a good piece to that. We're just looking at different ways to increase those numbers for reimbursement. Any questions on any of the updates?
So it was roughly 2,000 there for June. Do we expect, were there some quite a bit in July, or was June kind of the?
June, because of summer school, was gonna be the bulk, but we're open in July here, so we'll have numbers for July, and then we'll have numbers for August too. So again, I think our main goal is to just offer it up, and whether kids take advantage of that, we're hopeful that they will, but at least it's there as an option.
Any questions for Patrick or Ms. Schaefer? Well, it does look like we had a kangaroo in the facility, based on the celebration pictures.
We did.
I was like, what? Oh, yeah.
There was some on there. Okay. All right. With that said, we'll move on to business action items. Item A, UCSD 25-26 district goals.
So one of the things that I have talked to you guys about is we are just, poster material is not part of our forte. If we look at our district goals, we want actionable and items that we can put out in front of us to get better. I think we all know, sitting in this room, that we have kind of started from ground zero and continue to grow. With that said, put together a presentation, the synopsis of our goals, and then inputted the data behind it. Kudos to our staff and our administrators of getting to this point. We try to keep our goals very direct and centered around English language arts, math, and then true relationships with our kids. So I've inputted the data into board docs behind the administrative content. So if you want the raw data, everything is right there. In terms of the goal presentation that we'll go over with our staff here in the fall, just wanted to point out a couple things. Now, typically, the first goal is somewhat subjective because, again, we're looking at relationships, we're looking at a culture shift, high expectations, clear communication, strong relationships. It's not as easy as goal number 2 and 3 in terms of using fast pitch numbers. This year, instead of the performance survey, we decided with the referendum survey, we incorporated some of those questions in there. So question, or goal number 1, talks about, again, district-wide culture, expectations, clear communications. So we use those components in terms of how did we do it with goal number 1. And as you will see, I think we did pretty well in terms of the feedback from the referendum survey and where we were scored. And then the relationship survey, if you have a chance to look at that, all 610 kids had at least one staff member. And it's not just knowing who they are, it's having a direct relationship with them and knowing some of those integral parts of, likes, dislikes, and helping them through. So kudos to our administration team and staff in terms of really putting themselves in position to get to know our kids so that we can take them from where they're at and bring them up. And I think with goal number 2 and 3, Ms. Schaefer said it best in our admin meeting, that's truly where we're at from a district perspective. Because we're digging ourselves out of holes in terms of the previous scores at the elementary, which then dictate into middle school, high school, we have some ground to make up. And with that said, you're starting to see some of those pieces, but again, keep in mind, we're taking the kids because Ms. Schaefer has 4th graders reading at a 1st grade level. And again, I don't want to sit here and point fingers, but I will be honest with you and say there are various decisions that have been made prior to us that have put us into that position, including, you can go through the gamut, whether it's lack of workbooks for kids, whether it's staff that we should have increased the section size, whether it's overall EE processes taking place, professional development, instead of saying, hey, here's a program we just bought, good luck. Everything is organized. And again, I'm not saying we're saving the world, but the basics of what a district is built off of, we've had to uncover each rock and try to change some things, including the culture. So with that said, when you look at this overall presentation, I'm very pleased with where those numbers are. Do we have work to do? Absolutely. But in the same regard, I feel good that we're making progress each and every year, including this last year, despite some of those holes that we're just trying to get to where baseline. So if you look at the ELA district priorities with the ELA benchmarks, math benchmarks, connections, and then where the public sees us, I think, again, those are all favorable numbers in terms of what those what the data is showing. So we broke down the English language arts growth, and even in our compensation discussion today before the meeting, one of the things that I will never be supportive of is a compensation model that's tied to these goals. And the reason being is because you as an educator don't get to pick and choose who or what students are in your group. You just have to sit there and take where they're at, because we have move-ins, we have other circumstances that we have to keep in mind, and then take them from there. Now, granted, again, when you have years of situations where there was no professional development, that takes its toll. And so it's going to take some time to dig out of some of these things. So please be conscious of, if you see a lower mark, whether it's in the blue, which is ELA, or the norm to the right, don't sit there and attach it right to that teacher, because there's a lot that goes into that number. But this is what the data is telling us. We use the local assessment FastBridge. And so for this first one, ELA growth, it will give you kind of a good idea of where it is. With the second one, math,
No, I was just kind of thinking, I'm gonna say, we choose to use FastBridge because it's our one common assessment that we have district-wide, or else it's really hard to compare grade levels and apples and different things like that. Eventually, I would love to get to where we're changing our goals so it's not focused on growth, but grade level proficiency or different things like that. But like I said, right now, I feel like kind of we're at, it's just showing that growth, that we're making progress is kind of the focus for us. So yeah, that's how we go with FastBridge, because it is our one district-wide assessment.
Is just data in, because wasn't it like a year ago that we approved like a dashboard to monitor performance data and trend it over time?
Yes, and that dashboard never really materialized into this, and that's on me. That has no tie to the other administrators. We spent $2,000 on that dashboard to see where we're at. I have not renewed that. And again, it just comes down to time and where we're at and how that feeds into, especially now, with AI. And I mean, there's some pretty creative ways that we can do that in-house. So I did not renew that, but Jordan, to your point, yeah, that's where I came up short this past year.
Just curious if these kind of trend over time or how we're seeing, improvement in that percent growth. Because there was a few that were like double digit different from baseline, where you see one class is kind of an outlier in certain subjects. So I'd be curious to see how that travels.
Yeah.
Well, and we haven't put that into effect just yet in terms of, we have the floating, we talked about this as admins, we call it eCamp or EdCamp, to where the administrators have the option to use those 2 floating days, and then they target certain discussions to happen. So out of their contracted days, 2 of those days are then dictated by administrators to say, hey, we need to dive into this. And one of our administrative goals this year is to really, from a curriculum standpoint, understand where we're at and how we need to better using EduClimber, which takes that.
And I was just gonna say that, so EduClimber is a good way that we have all that information to be able to track it. You can compare it as far as student groups from year to year as they've gone through, so.
Unfortunately, we're just, again, we're at a point where we're digging ourselves out to create a constant baseline. So there is again, ELA and math, and then the last one is the relationship component. And again, 3.4% average, there's a connection with that many staff members. This is accurate data in terms of it's not inflated. So you're saying out of 610 students, there's a connection with every staff member. Yes, there's a list that staff members go in. So the one that is in right here, I put the data, the raw data in there. You'll see district staff members' names, who they feel. And what we do is over PLDs in the year, they'll go in and they'll put their name next to the student that they feel a connection to. So some of them have moved on, but we validated the data in terms of, in the elementary, it's a little bit easier because, again, as a former elementary teacher myself, you have a connection with probably the 25 kids that you have in the building. But if you look at middle school, high school, you have a rotation and a schedule, you might miss some kids. I'm proud to say that we're not. So again, I think a great piece of information. And then this came directly from our survey from the community for the referendum. And again, you've seen this data already, including the feedback supports from school perceptions. So overall, there's some definitely things that are strengths of ours, and there's definitely things of areas of opportunity for us, and this is what the public is saying. Case in point, the board, and Scott wasn't here last week, but we talked about that at length last Monday in terms of the referendum and where that number came in and how the community felt about that 900. So again, I think this is an overview of where we are as a district, and some of the things that we're going to take in terms of to get better at. So I'll just open it up to any questions that you may have.
Yeah, Jordan, I like your thought process of how each grade's group of students basically performs on that scale year over year. I mean, if we had like a fishbone diagram of all the inputs that go into the output of students' education, you've got teachers and students and curriculum. And then to understand, based on that data, is there, always in the first grade where there's maybe a lapse or a reduction, or is it in third grade, or, and then you can start to actually get when we implemented new curriculum and,
I
I understand
can't-
those variables that.
I can't speak for Cumberland, but I can, speak for New Richmond, and we have that data. We
Yeah.
could give you, out of my 7 years, we could take the student, and we went to Fastbridge, and we could sit there and show at conferences a map of how their child has done from kindergarten to that date. But as a district, we could also look at and see those, where that data plays out. And, obviously with COVID, you could see some things go down and so forth. So there is the option to do that. We're just not at the point where we have consistent data.
Yeah, well, I think here's the thing, we have the data, right? But then when you look at, take my my fifth grade class, we have the data as far as Fastbridge goes from they did the early literacy screener in K1, and then A reading in 2, 3, 4, 5. But I look at that group of kids or my fourth grade group of kids and go, okay, what did instruction look like in grade 3 for them? Was completely different than what instruction looked like in grade 2, in grade 1. So even though we have our universal screener of the data, it's a hard read for me to look at that group of kids, whether it's 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, whatever group it is, and go, hey, I trust this first grade data, and this is a true accurate read of them, right? So really, until we get my current kindergarten, 1st, 2nd graders, and that's the data we can be looking at, it doesn't mean that we take the data of those other kids and say, okay, it's whatever. It's just every time I look at it, I go, okay, well, they didn't have a core instruction. Their teachers didn't have this to be able to give them, or we weren't doing this. I mean, again, I'm not trying to place any blame or anything like that, but it's just hard to look at that. Whereas once I had it in Cumberland and built it up, I knew like, okay, these kids have had this for 6 years. Now I can look at this data and go, okay, this is where we're at. I'm just not comfortable to be able to do that yet, knowing kind of where I came in and where I need to go. If
And
that
I
makes
don't
sense.
trust the data at all, anyway. I in terms of prior
No.
to
Yeah.
Mrs.
Right, never
Schaefer,
have.
I don't.
Yeah, so I. yeah, I
So
don't
we
wanna-
have to, it's gonna take some time. And again, you can go on WiseDash, for the state, and you can sit there and make comparisons. And again, were things followed in terms of procedures for how to take the state test? I can't speak to that, Ms. Schaefer can't speak to that, Josh can't speak to that. We can only take what we know, which is the last 3 years. And I will put, concrete evidence in terms of we did everything that we were supposed to. Prior to that, I can't, I'm sorry.
It'll be really interesting as we start to collect that data and have more confidence in it, to be able to show, as we're coming out with all these new curriculum, where do we make a change in curriculum, and then see how it impacts, and then maybe as we go into duration between curriculum updates, we can kind of benchmark, outcome data based on where we're seeing changes in the curriculum or different activities.
And like, I don't know if it was you that said, there's so many factors that go into that. It's just not
Yeah.
the curriculum part of it,
Yeah.
right? It's getting the behaviors under control
Yep.
and getting those kids, and so there's just all these pieces. But yes, absolutely, you can start to see,
Yeah.
The difference of those.
As we're focusing on that, I know there's a lot into it, but it would be fun, interesting, to at least have those data points, as we start to look at it and build that data set to.
So EduClimber is one of the premier, it used to be the premier database where they would take all kinds of outputs and data and then put it in, and then you could do all the things we just talked about. One of the first questions I had for my admin team when I was first hired was, how much training have we had? Well, we've had some. Let's look at the login. Less than half logged into EduClimber. They didn't use it. So if you're not willing to log into the data system to look at and help guide instruction, you know where your data is. And that's where, honestly, day one for Ms. Schaefer, we need workbooks, we need X, Y, Z for core instruction. Now let's look at the data of where they're at. Can we put it as viable points of data? No, but we get, you don't have a choice. You take them where they're at. So we are definitely, my presentations as a superintendent, this is different than what I'm used to doing, because again, we used to have data points that shows, again, grade level. You hear that all the time. Where are students in the state of Wisconsin in terms of proficient grade level? We're just not there yet. We can't produce solid numbers for you and say that it's somewhat accurate.
Yeah, no, it'd just be meaningful, yeah, you get, this, as you take that fifth grade group as an example, and you look at these scores, and in kindergarten, they scored 68, and first they scored 70, and second they scored 67, and third they scored 72, and fourth, all of a sudden it was 42%. Okay, and then you compare the two classes, right, it's like, oh, well, they both scored 42%. So then you think, okay, it's probably a curriculum gap that we had in fourth grade, or if the one class scored better than the other, was it the teacher that maybe we could help get to delivering the curriculum differently? But without the data, it's hard to come to those conclusions. And I think, anyway, long story of saying, I think the actions that we've taken with making a uniform curriculum that you've asked for, kudos that we can start to actually see some of those patterns and understand where we can improve.
I like your comment about getting from a growth goal to an actual quantifiable goal too. I mean, I think it's cool that we have, our annual goals, but it would almost be good to see what those stretch goals are, right? What are some of those quantifiable metrics or other goals? Obviously, we want our kids to grow, but what's the next goal once we accomplish that? Might be kind of interesting.
As far as
forecast.
proficiency goes, and
Yeah,
I think
just
like
kinda
this is
forecast the next
quantifiable,
goals.
because we can measure their growth, whether it's typical or aggressive growth on there, so I mean, it is quantifiable in that sense, but yeah, as far as, proficiency or grade level,
Yeah,
absolutely, that would be the next step that we could take.
So in the administrative side, because it has different, that's what this is. And this is where David Popko comes in and gives us data based on consistency of, and we weren't even doing Fast Bridge at the high school level, which again is important for us to start continuing to track these items. So when you get a chance, you can look at some of these outlined factors that Mr. Popko put together. He's actually doing a thesis on data like this and how it pertains to goals and so forth. So lots of good stuff in there. Going back to the district goal synopsis, is there any other questions that you may have about the process, some of the data, some of the outputs?
I was getting concerned, the areas of opportunity, school climate, bullying, discipline, respect. I mean, how do you measure bullying?
I think one of the things that when I first got here was the definition of bullying. A lot of times, bullying, if you look it up, it's a repeated piece of, experience, a repeated experience that is constantly happening. And people oftentimes put the bullying label on, this happened to me. Well, how many times? Once. Did you tell anybody? No. Well, that's not bullying in the category that most of us know. So I think, again, when you look at the consistency of the behavior, how we're addressing these behaviors, how's our handbook evolved in terms of accountability, that's where I think, again, Ms. Schaefer came in and put a parameter in place because it was impeding our instruction. There was no doubt. Last year, I think that's where Sue and especially Richie made a huge difference in the consistency of that behavior and accountability. And I think Josh is just gonna, I know Josh will continue that. So from a standpoint of how I view behavior, Mrs. Schaefer comes from a district. Mr. Fiesel, has come from a different district. He's gonna understand some of those pieces and how that does affect our but again, these are comments out of a survey and we take everyone, we don't take them lightly. We look into them and say, what can we do and get to the root of things. I think the biggest factor though is, and I've run into this, especially as we were trying to change this culture, is have you told anyone? And unfortunately, a lot of responses are, well, no, didn't share it with, did you trust us enough to address it? Well, nothing's gonna be done. Maybe before, but that's not who we are.
Yeah, it's just, it's impossible to show improvement on something you can't measure, so therefore, yeah, how do you show improvement? So that's things that are, yeah, and then maybe it's part of just educating and getting people to speak up when things are happening.
Have we thought about, or, I mean, looked at having any more inspirational speakers come in and talk with the kids? Is that something we can maybe look into, you know, just thinking about it, because right now it's so hard with that, because there's obviously online, everything's on Snapchat, that's where we're going, that's where we're, and it's not necessarily in the building. It still affects them, so I was thinking, you know,
I think last year's presentation, and, you know, when we did sextortion and talked about those types of things,
Yep.
you know, one of the things as they, and I'm pointing it to our administrators, they create a set school improvement plan. For their building, they're gonna come up with common themes that are there. And, you know, if bullying rises to the top through their evaluations and their discussions. Sextortion happened to be one that we felt, we knew that there just wasn't a lot of information out there and wasn't getting. Now, I made the mistake that I put it out there and should have given people a heads up, because sextortion is pretty graphic. I felt very strongly, so did at the time Sally, who was on the board, but also as a detective for a number of years, you know, this is information you need to know. So I think there's always possibilities. You know, we have to weigh out instructional time, this issue, and I think as we develop some consistency with our admin team, looking at some of those and, yeah, where does it fit? What do we want to tackle? The last thing I want from Ms. Schaefer is, you know, a list of 25 things that I'm going to address this year. That's too much. So we kind of focus on, but it's always, you know, part of our discussions, especially if it comes over the email or, you know, different ideas about, we brought in Terrence Talley, who I had a previous experience with, and he came in and we did some different, I don't know, motivational speakers. But again, I think we just kind of look at some of the needs within our buildings.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, a lot of stuff comes across my desk. I'm like, oh, I'd love to get that. And then I'm trying to figure out, you know, all comes out the finances too.
yeah.
You know, okay, we're gonna pull that money from, how much does that one cost? You know, different things like that. But yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely room for that.
Anything else on goals? Let's move to B, strategic direction.
Okay, I just wanted to, again, put this in front. We still have to have a lot of discussions around this, but in the midst of a variety of discussions, not much has changed. Just a quick overview. This is the reason that we have the board calendar that we do, so that we can sit and have individual discussions with the board. For example, when we talk about how are we going to evaluate how we're doing in these areas, I would challenge you, like I tell the administrators, think of a topic within the school setting that doesn't fit under one of these umbrellas. When we dive into that, that's where at the board meeting, you know, we'll be here for 2 hours, and do we ever really get to dive into some of these topics? The answer is no. So when we have those work sessions every other month or so forth, we actually bring the experts in, for example, technology. And we have yet to really get to this true model yet. But again, when it's technology, bring Frank in. When we talk about facilities and infrastructure, you know, bringing Tim in. When we talk about this, bring Laura in. Parents and community engagement, I think the people sitting here on our admin team are the experts in that. Purposeful data, once again, that's our job as administrators. Students and staff, that's the overall survey and how are we doing, but it encompasses everything. So the one thing we did make a change to was we just added another value that we thought was important. I think we're very much missing this piece in society at this point, and that's just compassion for others. But these, I think if you think about how do I want my child to be as a person, they might not be the smartest, they might not be the highest scoring ACT individual, but are they a good person? And I think most of us would agree that that's kind of what we would like to see in our own children. These are the things that we want our culture to be like. So that's the only change to this document, and we'll have many more discussions about it. In terms of the goal, as an admin team, we felt that consistency was important, so we actually just decided to keep the same goals and not go any further to build upon what you guys said. We want consistent data, and we want to understand, because again, if you go back to the synopsis, I think it tells a good story of where we're at. One thing I failed to mention was, if you ask Patrick, why, where's your science goal? Where's your social studies goal? Where's your music goal? I would challenge you to say, we need our students to have a good, solid reading base and a math base to be successful in any of those other subjects. If you have a child that's interested in science, we all know that math is the forefront and the bottom base of that science area. Including math now, you got to be able to read with some proficiency. So that's where our focus is. The other one, which we are still getting to, that I would challenge is critical thinking. We're in a time and an area with AI, and again, I think we have to embrace AI. We cannot sit here and say it's bad. There's a lot of quality tools that I know people in this room, including myself, have used AI. But there's a critical thinking component to where we want problem solvers. We want students to be able to have a problem in front and not have to rely on other things, but hey, have the confidence to support and move forward with a plan. So we'll get to that point, but overall, we're asking for approval for this foundation at this point, including the goals for next year.
All right, anybody want to entertain a motion to approve the strategic direction and district goals for 2026, 2027? Motion by Jody, do you have a second? Second. Second by Scott, any discussion? As all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Goals 26, 27 are approved. Item C.
So based on our previous discussions, and again, we've had 6 meetings in roughly 2 months, the board calendar is looking to be adjusted. Highlights of that include moving our board meetings to a Wednesday, to stay away from Mondays because of factors such as events, the start of the week, etc. With that, this board calendar infuses what I just talked about with our strategic direction, and having those meetings where we can dive into facilities, data, budget, etc. In addition to that, the last discussion, Jordan brought up Lent and some of these religious components. So in this draft, I highlighted to what would you like to do? Would you like to stay away from the Wednesday? Because that was one of the concerns, was having an opportunity to attend these religious experiences. So I put, if it's highlighted, that means you got to make a choice right now within your approval to which one you want to go with. And that is, it only affects us twice. But with the change, the meetings would start, as you guys described, 5:30 would be a consistent starting time for work session and regular meetings. I don't believe we have anybody here that needs to milk cows, so you're not having to, that came up in one of my early years, but the 5:30 starts so that you can get home to your families. And as we process through, again, the Wednesday night, I did have to change some things to Monday based on events or things that were there. But overall, this is the board calendar with those dates.
A bit of a shift for the half hour, move up of starting time for the board meetings, and then any concerns with just doing the Mondays for the two conflicts, December 14th and March 15th?
No, I think for those two Mondays.
That's fine.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the calendar as printed with the Mondays where there's conflicts on the Wednesdays. Anyone entertain that motion? So, got a motion by Scott,
I'll second
Scott, a second by Jordan. Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
it. All right.
Nay, calendar is approved.
Just a quick, because I know majority of people here have kids within the district. So again, we stayed away from dates such as spring break, et cetera. So just keep that in mind. And the biggest one is like concerts, things like that. Okay,
Andy?
all right, letter D. This was something that has kind of come to the forefront, and the most recent was yesterday when Marcus and I were here fixing one of the doors. And unfortunately, this is just old age that has not really been addressed in terms of they're 24 years old. However, within the last less than, I would say, 9 months, we've had 3 events where we had a door snap, or the opener didn't go, or the springs broke. And the part of this is I'm asking the board to go to an RFP process. I don't think if we continue to do this one at a time, we're gonna get nickel and dime. For example, here is from yesterday, here is the this is one door. And basically, with the number of doors that we have, early indication says that we could probably get all the doors done at the time prior to this, 18 grand. And so if we're spending 4,000 on each door, it just fiscally doesn't make a lot of sense, because we're getting charged with, you know, they gotta come and look at it, and there's all kinds of fees. So we would go to RFP here quickly, and then go with replacing the doors, which would be around a $15,000 to $20,000 expense for this year. So all the numbers are there based on what has gone in the last 8 months with these 3 events.
So we're just looking to approve the RFP.
RFP process, yeah, not the vendor. I just, again, this was nothing that any of us, it was on my radar, but I was gonna try to limp by, because it wasn't necessarily a priority, especially with the referendum. But at this point, with 3 events, it makes it a priority.
At least we know the mean time between failure is consistent. Basically, after 24 years, all of them are gonna.
It's not how it house works too. Everything goes at once.
Yes.
Well, at low cost, it doesn't really make sense to try to stratify your maintenance, right? That would be my only other thing, but less than 20 grand every 25 years would probably be okay.
Yeah.
So how many are there and how many do you need to replace?
So at the bottom, we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've done 3, except door 4 is the complete everything. Springs, you think of your garage door at home, that's what we're going to be doing. But again, you're looking at bulk pricing versus. The other part of that, and we went through this yesterday, was these new types of openers offer an app-based open. So our bus drivers can now just pull up, click the door, it goes up. There's no getting in. We can, secure more things. So utilizing the technology too, but it really comes down to the fiscal responsibility of, nickel and dime versus doing all of them at once, because to Derek's point, it's just a matter of time before each and every one of those.
It's usually a lot more disruptive and a lot more expensive. You don't just go ahead and do it. Or do them all on Sunday.
Yeah, I had some other things I'd like to do on Sunday.
We're doing the shop floor too, not just the bus garage.
We're gonna look at that. I did notice yesterday when we were here that those are actually newer. He's still evaluating whether those, how old those are, but they are newer than what the bus barn, these doors are.
Can we also, okay, can we also put in there like a preventive maintenance, log, for all of these new upgrades and changes that we're doing district wide? So that we can show a log of what kind of preventive maintenance is being done and track that and keep it consistent?
Yeah, are you talking like service or are you just talking overall?
Overall preventive maintenance that we do at the district level, not necessarily what we call someone to do. So that when we have the lawn equipment, we ensure that there's a log for preventive maintenance on that. When we have doors like this, we ensure that preventive maintenance is getting done. The only way to do that is through a log system.
Yes, yeah, we have it for all of our vehicles, we have an inventory, as you guys have seen, but as far as maintenance logs, we do have a maintenance log for everything that has a machine, but as far as some of this miscellaneous equipment, like a garage door opener, we just have when we purchase, put them up. Maintenance in general.
But rather than a maintenance log, which is a log that you do whenever you're performing maintenance on a vehicle or whatever it is, a preventive maintenance log for what you do to check and make sure that everything's in working order.
Like every spring, fall, are we going and spraying tracks, wheels, springs, greasing,
Greasing,
right,
yeah.
just
Grease
stuff
the
to
door,
make it
yeah,
flat.
doors and grease.
Well, we have found that grease was not a rather useful item around here. And we're finding out right now why.
For friction.
Sure.
But duly noted.
And for vendors, are we sticking with this company, correct?
Nope, the
Are we
RFP
gonna
will
search
open
around?
it
So I
up
was
to
gonna say,
anybody.
if there's, okay, I
Yep,
was gonna say, there's other,
so the RFP will open it up
Yep.
and anybody can apply.
Okay.
So that's what the RFP process is.
yep, okay.
Anybody want to entertain a motion to approve RFP?
I'll entertain a motion.
All right, we got Nicole. We have a second?
Second.
Second. Scott, any other discussion? As all those in favor of the approval of the RFP, signify by saying aye.
Okay.
By nay. RFP is approved.
I will point out, Marcus is a former graduate and he's been a lifesaver. I texted him and he's here the same day, but no, the RFP is open to the public, so there is no, we'll take it into account like any of the other ones, so.
Pardon me.
All right, item E, a couple things that I want to put on your radar, that are a little bit, just as I go down the list here. I'm feeling better about where our inventory is in terms of buses. However, we have run into a little hiccup. Bus 10, which is our spare. I think to put this all in perspective, since, we sold 5 buses in a matter of a year and a half. That's pretty alarming, but it goes to show where our fleet was and how it was not taken care of. With that said, if that's how your fleet is, think of the other items that we've talked about, whether it's the lawnmowers, etc. Now, you can see the items that have been purchased just to do our general maintenance. And again, I think Tim does a great job, but this is kind of our overall inventory. 2 items that I want to point out, we've had to spend some funds, especially because of my comment made about grease. We did not have a good preventive maintenance schedule. This Kubota, we put some funds in, and I'm just telling you now through the documentation that this is a machine that isn't gonna last much longer. The other part to that is some of these are newer items. Let's start with the buses. Bus 10, Blaine Brothers did not get back to me prior to tonight's meeting, but I will tell you that in my recommendation, it's pretty accurate in terms of, let's see, this next item. We are gonna have to go down the point of replacing bus 10. And right now, until it's confirmed, but we're looking at $16,000 to $45,000 to fix bus 10. I don't think it is anybody's intention to sit there and put 16 to 48,000 into a 2005 bus. So I'm looking for some direction in the next item to go to leasing option for one more bus, and then I feel we would actually be in very good condition. If you go, let's just start there. Is there any questions on the bus inventory summary?
Which ones are leased versus purchased? Because the last two buses we leased, right?
If you look at the 26s are leased.
Is there any reason or concern to continue leasing, or do we want to kind of keep a mixed, like, variation of purchased versus leased? I know the cost was a little bit of a delta, but not significant, right?
So my plan is to get updated numbers, but in the board documents, I put in there the lease recommendation so that you can look at the numbers at that time. Obviously, we know rising costs. I think it's, especially with the referendum still in limbo, we're better off going leasing for one more bus. With that recommendation, and again, I don't have numbers yet, but this kind of just came about. We have our inspection scheduled for tomorrow, and we feel all of them are ready. And Jake is going to take over that. Jerry's working, so Jake is going to oversee that with the state patrol. In terms of I'll get numbers if you approve it in the next agenda item to pursue it. With that, then our oldest individual bus would be this one, which would then be our spare. I can tell you with confidence that this would not pass an inspection, so it's basically inevitable for us needing another bus. Otherwise, we are kind of crossing our fingers that nothing breaks down here in our regular house. How often do we use spares? Do we know this? How often? I would hate to gamble and not have a spare. It's more than you think.
I think, yeah, there'll be bus, just from my perspective, all of a sudden bus, whatever is now this bus, and then we have to retrain the kids for a while to go to this bus, and then I don't know what happens, and another bus is back, and so they retrain them to go back, so.
You hit a deer, something goes wrong. I don't know the instances, but I can tell you that it's more, again, it would not be good practice to not have a spare bus. Especially with, again, all these unknowns that you just never, we also have, and Jake is pretty good about it, but at sometimes if events are canceled, we need another bus to take kids, because on one night, especially in the spring, we have track going to Mondovi, we have baseball going to Boyceville, we have softball going to Chautauqua. And then we also have a field trip. So that's a given, especially in the spring. So I would very much not consider not having a spare.
So is it normal practice to just use the oldest bus as the spare and replace as needed?
Nah, I did ask Jerry, but I also asked Christy, and until Greg, who's gonna start on August 3rd, I said, give me, based on this, because I asked the same thing, is it that simple? And they said, based on what we know about, where the years are and what I've had to fix, this would be the recommendation of both Christy and Jerry, that 10 would become our spare. Or excuse me, bus two would be our spare.
You have it wrong on the right side comment then.
Oh, I'm sorry, yep. This should be, this line. All right, any other questions on the bus? So going to the vehicle part, I think, again, I talked, most of you were, on the board. This is why we either needed to commit to, equipment for snow removal or go to the third party. 2005 Chevy, hey, it's still, there and still working. But obviously at any given point, you run into some issues. The Fusion is working really good, but now you got another 2000 dump truck. And for what we need it for, it's working out well. Preventive maintenance and some schedules. Jerry's done a nice job of keeping it up. I think Greg is gonna take it a step further with that position. The Explorer, the Prius, we just obviously got these based on having vans that were not statute in terms of you have to have a bus license if you're driving anything over 7 passengers. So I feel that we're decent in this area. However, at some point, these 2 vehicles will be in front of you in the near future. In terms of district grounds and maintenance, we had an incident with Mr. Lamb taking down the trailer to Disneyland, or Disney World, excuse me, and he hit a bump and fenders fell off. We got that fixed, didn't meet the deductible. The plow's on there. The Kubota is the one, and again, within these documents, you can see everything that we've done. It was worth it at one point, but I would not, if anything else goes wrong with it, we're gonna need some type of tractor to replace it, which is gonna be a bigger cost item. Our mowers are fairly new. The Land Pride, we actually put in all 3 spindles and replaced them at the cost of roughly a grand a piece. So we feel this is in a better working order, and now we also have a preventive maintenance plan to do. And you know the John Deere that we've talked about. So again, we feel like we're in a better spot in terms, but there are some things on the horizon that we have to be cognizant of. So the point of this inventory is just to, again, put in front of you that we're hoping that some things last year, but based on some of the data here, we have to know that it might be in front of you sooner rather than later. Any
It'd be really
questions?
nice as Greg gets on board and to kind of forecast some of those, to your point of, one of those 2 trucks goes down, snowplow, consistency, maybe at one point, if we do need a replacement truck, do we get a plow truck and not pay Harmony else to plow? But, yeah, nice to have maybe as an improvement, and a worst case need to replacement kind of future plan would be helpful as we get more consistency there.
I'm kind of, I've been doing this for a while, I'm dumbfounded, when you look at the bottom of the spreadsheet, the amount of items that we've had to sell because they're not.
Yeah, it wasn't like, we should revise this. We got our capital budget and forecasted that this is gonna hit this month. This is gonna be really expensive to fix, so let's buy a new one.
And what do we do with the dump trucks that we have versus the work truck?
So the work truck was kind of where we go place to place with garbages. That's where, again, my recommendation of a golf cart would have been helpful in that regard. The dump truck is used a lot in terms of, carrying equipment to one place to the other, lawn care equipment. If we need gravel in certain spots, it gets used a lot. So both are very, we could not do
Looking at the
with,
years of it, like
yeah.
how old it is.
if one goes, there's,
Like, okay,
we cannot sit here and eat it and say, well,
okay,
good luck.
Yep.
Because Tim might
Okay.
just move on, as I would.
Yeah, for the Kubota mower that you had all the receipts and stuff pulled for, I mean, from what I could tell, in 10 years, we changed the oil twice and the gas filters once.
Right.
And so, your point about the grease is duly noted, but, to Scott's point about the preventive maintenance, that's where when we get to that, I think is it 2 months maybe, where we've got the facilities or the gym topic, it would be great if between him and Greg, that it could actually show, we could actually show, here's the maintenance, yeah, activities,
When it was done.
yeah.
And we do have those spreadsheets right now for each bus, so anytime something's fixed on a bus, if it's oil change, it's put into a spreadsheet, but, the preventative maintenance of, after you mow, you wash them off, you grease it, that's the part, the filter change, and again, I will again go to bat for Ryan, because he was spread pretty thin, based on what we needed him for. So I think in terms of the recommendation to bring Greg on and try to create some efficiency within all of these, I think we're gonna be in a much better spot.
Kind of right size both of those roles, right? So,
Yes, plus we have good individuals, like I said, that, have some experience with those areas, and they also take pride in their vehicles. Greg,
Yep.
he knows exactly, 'cause if he doesn't, your house is burning down, so.
Okay, any other questions on the transportation facilities?
So leading into F is just my recommendation, and I'm just asking for authorization to pursue leasing prices. Obviously, in there, we'll have the price of a new bus if you want to buy it outright, but I'm just looking after what I presented to say, yeah, we got to do something, so giving me the authority to go. I will not make a decision, I will have it for you, but pursue that we do need a bus to add to our fleet.
Make that motion.
Motion by Jody, do we have a second?
I will second.
Second. Motion and second to authorize the RFP for bus replacement refinancing. Any discussion?
the only other question I would have, and I think I brought it up in the last bus purchase, the flat nose versus front, gas versus diesel, the fact we've got a mixed fleet. Don't necessarily care, but I guess my preference would be that bus drivers get the choice of flat nose versus front out, whatever they're more comfortable driving is what they.
Yeah, we went to that point, Jordan, we went, and bus drivers change, and the reason that we went with what we did was cost. The other factor was that I took into consideration was we have female drivers that requested, I cannot see over the nose. Well, what they've changed, and these are now standard, is the gas pedals now move. And you would also get it's the gas pedal and what else? Oh, the camera to see over. And so even with this last purchase, when I asked the salesman about that, he said, you're gonna add at least 10 grand to get the flat nose. And he goes, I couldn't get you a bus right now anyway with the flat nose. So again, I think most drivers would say, is there a difference between the two? Yes. And where we talked to like Shackett and Wendy and Christy and said, hey, if we get these and they have especially the pedal, does the pedal come up and you're able to reach those and so forth? Is that still doable? Oh, absolutely. So I think we don't want a hodgepodge. We want to create some consistency, because to Jamie's point, if a bus goes down, we're going into another bus, and plus drivers can change too. We have moved to more of a gas because they start better during the winter months. I did talk to Greg. That was one of our discussions, because some school districts have gone to propane, and he said Patrick, I will quit if you approve a propane bus from my knowledge of what propane is as a fire chief. He goes, you can give me any kind of research, but from what I have seen, and I'm like, it's interesting to know, because I think it was Boyceville was starting to go into the propane.
Yep.
Colfax is all propane. And he just said, you are asking for trouble. And I respect him from a fire chief standpoint, but some consistencies, but I will, you'll have the cost perspective, but last time it was, his answer was, I can't even get you a flat nose bus.
I missed who said the second on that.
Jody and Nicole.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Otherwise, you got a motion and a second for the bus replacement and lease financing authorization. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. That is approved. Item G, enrollment.
So I just wanted to, again, you guys have seen this, just wanted to put the projection up there on students, so nothing you have to do. And obviously, we spent a lot of time last week talking about it. In terms of, you want me to keep going?
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
Letter H, we again, Scott wasn't here, but it's the same documentation. I feel very good about where we ended the year. It's not completely finalized, but for the public standpoint, we knew we were deficit spending, and to come in about 100 to 120,000 of deficit spending based on some of the, I would say, surprises we had, such as the lawnmower, et cetera. Feel very good about where this kid came in. Kudos to Deb, and just the whole team. A couple things that I outlined during the work session. This is a number that's always interesting, especially when we talk that the state did not pursue using surplus to get the percentage of sped reimbursement. The other part that we talked about during the presentation with Baird is the defeasance of 40 grand. So again, you guys have all seen this document. Is there any questions? This is more for the public to see and understand how we're making decisions.
$1 million for Fund 27 that'll come out in July.
Yeah, it's part of the process now. I don't know, the exact date, but once the audit, which is the 10th, we'll have all finalized numbers, so.
All right.
So just for, purposes, so this is what we'll have to take. Our current Baird model shows we have roughly a 28% fund balance. And so we just need to take 100 to 120,000 out, which again, I feel really good about. So, okay. Here's another item, again, with proper planning as we go in. We've been talking about the phone system. We have now narrowed it down, and Frank has done a really good job of breaking these things down. We have met numerous times talking through this. So the basic of the proposal is going to a WebEx phone system. As you know, within 6 months, our current system is non-existent in terms of support. And so when you look at all these comparables, getting quotes, et cetera, we did a comparison, including the recommendation, and the recommendation now comes down to WebEx. He did do a field trip to New Richmond prior to me leaving. That one of the last things I did was we moved from a phone analog system to a Zoom online, and that was a variety of years ago. And so he sat down just to learn more with them. And actually it came down to Zoom and WebEx. We felt only with WebEx, again, one of the main things was obviously they're cheaper, but we felt they have cornered this area when it comes to phone systems and support. So this would be a project that we would tackle over like Thanksgiving. A lot of it would be behind the scenes, but again, as everybody knows, and for the public's sake, this is not something we're choosing to do because we want new fancy phones. We have no choice. And at 40 grand, obviously there's a big ticket item, but everything's kind of explained. So again, the recommendation is for WebEx.
Any questions on the new phone system recommendation? Otherwise, we just need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve based on the recommendation.
Got a motion from Jody. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Scott. Any other discussion? And I think it's, just gonna look at the total.
There's 10,000 a year, I think.
I think I'm looking at the right one, it was 21,489.
Yeah, there's like an install hardware, right?
Yeah, there's an upfront cost, which he compared to the rest. So if you look at the matrix, there it is.
So that's 21,829 there, and the cell at D2.
21,829.4.
Do you want the amount in there just to?
It's correlated with the recommendations.
Okay, so we have a motion to discuss, any other discussion? As all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. All recommendations approved.
All right, Fund 80 was a larger topic a couple meetings ago. In that meantime, once again, my comment earlier with a question from 80, unfortunately, Beth is losing out on a major grant that she has had access to. I would just say that unfortunately with these political administrations, we are getting less of these opportunities. And here's a big one that helped provided support for our daycare. 110 million. If you go through the documentation, it will show you how Beth utilized those. So what we have to do, number one, we weren't sure because they've been talking about this for the last 4 years. And now there seems to be the sunset. And so we have to go in when we determine the budget and understand what does Beth's program spend, and we know that, but also now take it into effect, the grant is gone. So, and a lot of it, I would say, it's not necessarily the daily care, it's the items to help support the program, whether it's playground equipment, some capital components. So again, nothing you have to do, but that's a big hit to every child care program within the state, that grant is going away.
It didn't have a total, but what was roughly 20, looks like 25,000.
25, 24 something, I think.
And we'll be able to
that shows.
collect some of those until probably November, because we submit them, and then it
Correct.
takes about a quarter. So
That's another big hit. So when when we work out the math for the revenue cap sheet, we have to take that into account that we don't have access to those funds.
But I think Tiny Tots cleared like 50,000 last year, right?
It's not just Tiny Tots, it's the overall, and we're still breaking that down to say, where specifically. But yes, we did clear Fund 80 with roughly a $40,000 black. But again, there's a caveat there to say, where is that with this change of location? That should help, but obviously we know it's a $250,000 facility upgrade. We are starting that process on Monday. They were here for final pieces, so again, that's going to be happening. But overall, yeah, just kind of take into account some of these numbers.
And I guess for 2026, what are we planning to levy for Fund 80? And I guess, does this impact that at all?
Yeah, until I get, I will have, especially next month, I will have the revenue cap sheet, which then outlines what we will do. But there's a lot of figuring that has to go into account to see how does it play out. As we talked about at the work session last Monday, we were not, he was using Fund 80 levy as a mechanism, and we should not have been. So first step was to understand what does Beth spend, because that's the only thing that we really use Fund 80 for. So now we have to take, yes, this amount, 25 grand in the whole scheme of things, but in the same regard too, okay, do we need that playground equipment? It's not necessarily services. We're also gonna be saving money with rent now. So taking some of those things into account, including the fund balance. Any questions? Okay, letter K, prior to this, we set up a meeting, and Jordan, our treasurer, and our president Derek, met, and we went over the comparable sheet that I, presented to the board via email. So we went through and spent a couple hours talking through at length. I'll let them summarize. The plan would be to bring, all documentation and recommendation to you at our work session the week of August 10th, whatever date you decide, because we also have to have a meeting to decide our health benefits plan redesign because of the increase. But I'll let you two take it over and you can summarize whatever you like.
I suppose I could do that as treasurer, huh?
How about it?
So basically, we agreed to pretty much 3% across the board, with the exception of, what's the category of professional staff, where because of steps and tiers, it ends up mapping a little bit more than 3%, but the base, adder was 3% that went into that formula. I think the only gap we had left was, support staff, yeah, so that's the hourly that we don't have annual hours to be able to compute kind of the dollar value of that increase, but, based on the Baird model, it was, what, 60 or 70,000 over what was in the current Baird model?
That's gonna be higher.
Yeah, I did tell them that,
Yeah.
there was no official, deletion of the current model. But this year, by the end of the next staff, compensation increase, I will have a presentation, because I did a preliminary of what we did in Richmond, which I think fits with some of their philosophy on how we could, adapt to a different model. But yeah, there's definitely, even the previous board, did not like the model. There were some inconsistencies with who was placed where, but overall, I want to thank Derek and Jordan. They came prepared, because it saved a lot of time. They knew some of the comparables. They ran some scenarios, including where we are to local school districts. And again, my goal as a superintendent is always to stay pretty in the middle. And again, not being low or not being the high based on our enrollment, and we pretty much are pretty close to that.
Yeah, the DPI data would tell us we're pretty much not bad in the middle for 500 to 700 people districts. Which is a good thing, and we're competitive, but
I would say, and you guys have seen the competitive data, or excuse me, the comparable data, which most of the districts were between 2.63 and 3%, which is CPI. So again, we're right within that threshold. To Jordan's point, because of the current model, some staff members will see almost a double-digit increase, but we're not in position to make that change now. That was what the previous model was. But with that said, we're actually Deb and Laura are running numbers right now, and they were jumping on it. And so we'll have a preliminary draft that I will share with them. And then, again, looking for the board to address it at the work session so that we can start the year without doing back pay for staff. The only back pay would be administrators and 12-month people that started in July 1 or the fiscal year. Anything else, gentlemen?
thanks for having all the comparables so we could make intelligent decisions.
So the next one is the health benefits, and just a quick update on where we're at. This is the what I presented last week at the work session. So unfortunately, we are at a 40% increase. We got it down to 42. We are not able to be picked up or not willing to be picked up by any other carrier. Sometimes, whether it's businesses or districts, you find yourself in catastrophic. We have 55 individuals, employees that take our plan, and we have 8 catastrophics, which is really out of the ordinary. 48%, as you can see in what, the best way to describe it to staff, almost a 2-to-1. And if I was running a company and I went to my boss and said, we're at a 2-to-1 loss ratio, they said, there's the door, get out of here. So it's things out of our control. With that said, we're working on a new plan design to really try to minimize the effect for staff. And so we're working through that and again, I will have those plan redesigns for you at the week of August 10th. One of the things I talked to the board about was trying to go from to incorporate a 10-month agreement so that we can get started on this process earlier, which is typically the norm. However, after my phone conference today, we're being advised not to do that, and I agree, and here's why. Right now, we've had 2 back-to-back increases of 30 plus and 40 plus. And if we were to narrow it down so that we could get our renewal numbers earlier, we take the chance of having to renew 2 months next year. And if we have another increase, substantial or similar to what we have now, nobody will pick us up. If you look at that list, you're talking about every major carrier that's around, and they wouldn't touch us without a 50% increase. So United Healthcare is actually working with us, which I can, support, but in the same regard, these are hard numbers to look at. So there are going to have to be some, when we look at plan designs, we have to take into account that, the 87% is taken on by the district, and the other 12%, roughly 13, is taken on by the individual. So it's just the day and age of where health benefits are. The good part, if there is a silver lining, we had a 7.5 decrease in dental, but that line item is pretty minimal. So with that said, that's kind of where we're at, and more information will be coming. Any questions?
What's the threshold for a catastrophic event for healthcare? You have a dollar amount or that they say, yeah, that's
So-
too high, that I don't want to spend on you?
Yeah, we actually, in Richmond, we hired a third-party data consultant, and we went through individual data. Health Partners was willing to give us that data. So, and what it did was it helped us as a district dive into areas that we need to do better as a district, inform them. That's where we actually were coming to the point of providing a clinic on site. In that event, we had some catastrophics, which took us away from self-funding, and they basically used 50,000 or double. But then some of the vendors, like Health Partners, talked about, if a family policy costs you 25 grand, we're going to use anything over 25 as catastrophic. So it just
So like certain events, like things are other people's control.
I know.
sometimes. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
like how do you?
Flexible, like it should be,
Yeah.
but I think they look at the
I feel like-
percentage, like, so us as a group, so they look at it as, you guys are high risk.
Yeah.
Why, unfortunately, they do, like, when I worked for the hospital in Amory, like, and I know I was gonna maybe bring it up or ask, but do all of our employees have a card or free access to the wait room?
Yes.
You look for,
Yeah, that's what I
you
mean,
want
like,
everyone to be healthy, you
If there's
want it,
something,
like,
they're
nobody
doing
to
the high risk things that are gonna cause your health, maybe one thing,
Yeah.
but I had a brain tumor this year, it cost a lot more than $50,000 for you know what I mean, that's
Yeah.
obviously,
I would
Other
tell you
than
this, we came up with a wellness plan, and one of the things that was not taken well, but it was a non-negotiable for our board, we required everyone to get a physical every year. And we had administrators that said, I haven't had a physical for
Right.
15 years. And I said, and then that's the preventive
preventative,
maintenance.
exactly,
That's
exactly.
unfortunately,
And,
that's what they look at.
and so we have,
You're a
there
high
are
risk group,
tools
sorry.
that we need to institute,
Yeah.
we're just,
Yep.
we're on the backside. And
Proactive instead of reactive, for sure.
That's where our community ed funds come in too. What can we do maybe to?
Is there things like that where you can use United Healthcare is looking at that we can help build this
Yeah.
health and wellness in our
Yeah.
school district to make us look less high risk? Or-
yes, Health Partners, does a nice job because you can get a cut for Health Partners. We had a program, you had to do so many things.
Yeah.
For preventative, healthcare.
Yep.
In addition, we required a physical. And those things actually allowed us, we were tracking at about 80%.
We do like an on-site biometric screening, so it's just like BMI,
Right.
waistline.
That's one where you would get
Yeah.
points.
Yeah.
For taking that.
Maybe offer that,
$75.
just,
Is there any, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Right.
See if there's anything we can do to impact health.
United Healthcare does, but, I mean,
but if you see nobody else will touch us,
But if we implement these things, will they?
right, but
Well, we're having conversations with, there's a co-op, like with with Elk Mountain, Duran. And those are two superintendents I have a lot of respect for, and we're talking, but again, to that point.
you're the one coming in with the risk.
unfortunately.
You don't want you in.
They're gonna be like this.
Right.
So again, we're gonna have to weather this storm. And to Nicole's point, I mean, we have no control over this. This is life.
And health insurance is not.
Luck is just not on our side right now.
You don't go up from here.
Yes.
Front district about, maybe the co-op, they might bring us luck.
Could be. All right, so nothing, approval there, more information to come. Rezoning update. Just so everybody's on the same page, and the newspaper is here, and covering, if you read some of the articles in the newspaper, but how this came about. And I'm sorry for some of you that have heard this already, but I feel I need to go into detail. So where this started was, you approved the purchase of a container. And the container was part of our plan a couple months ago. When that was approved, Jordan brought to my attention that there was a city ordinance that did not allow containers to be used. So after looking into it, that is and everything is in there. You can see all the email correspondence and the ordinance and so forth. After looking into it, because we have a container and we use it for football and track storage, and we need another one to do our overall plan. Well, in noticing that, I questioned, after reading the ordinance, and said, well, great, this doesn't apply to us because we're governmental and this is residential, so we're good to go to buy. And I asked the question to Kristen, our clerk at the city, and said, is the district, what is our ordinance? Because we're residential. You're residential. Why is the district residential? We're a government entity. I don't know. And how this was never caught in years ago, I still don't know, but this is a prime example of every single rock that we have to take up and look under. So with that said, there's been conversations with Derek, myself, and the mayor and the clerk, and it's coming down to where they agree we are not residential, but there's a cost to moving us from residential to the correct zoning, which is governmental. So with that said, you can see our correspondence, and this is the ordinance, and then this is the estimate from the city that we just received today. was how to get ourselves in the proper zoning. There is a $2,500 to $3,000 cost, and we have been asked by the city to split that cost. So currently, we are not able to purchase a container, and the container that we already have is in limbo. Correct.
What other things are we?
Don't ask, don't
Derek,
ask.
anything to add?
No, yeah, I mean, it's true cost, Cedar Corp is what's charging, the city to do the work, and so that's where the 2,000.
So why does that why is Cedar Corp involved? They're involved in a lot of stuff. They tried to be involved when we were building our business. They tried to stick their nose in it.
Yeah, how does that?
They did not, they had no authority over that they wanted to charge us thousands and thousands of dollars for what? I really have a problem with Cedar Corp getting paid to do this. It says you're an X4 local class, on your tax bill. Okay, that just means you're exempt. It doesn't say anything that I tried to contact the zoning at St. Croix County, but of course, they leave work very early, so, and I work very late, so it never crossed paths correctly. But, you know, this X4 local just means you're exempt, okay? I mean, the community center is zoned the same as you guys, and you've been zoned X4 local since as far back as I could go on the tax thing from 2002, okay? Now you have assessors coming around, you have
Yes, and no one's caught on.
things going on, this is no fault of the district,
Mm-mm.
okay? And if there are issues, I mean, if there are issues that are mistakes that are not involved with you, it says that the county can do that, very limited. So I don't know why Cedar Corp has to be involved, number one.
It looks like that's who the city's using to.
I understand
Yeah,
that,
but
but
they should have
they-
their own.
I just wanna say they're making village. So I'm not I'm a big fan of Cedar Corp.
Well, that's what a planning commission is for. That's what a planning commission committee is for.
Well,
Within,
and
and
so-
they make the decisions. Granted, they have to follow so let's say we adopt the county's ordinances, then we have to follow, do the counties. All you have to do is follow the counties then, and that's what you go by. Yeah, I don't know why Cedar Corp would have to come in. Like, usually you have a person that comes in and when it comes to like special issues, like you can hire someone separately that you have to go to for zoning things and say, yep, this is okay, legally you look into that, so maybe are they their legal go-to person when
I mean, I
Maybe
wonder,
that's what it
can't,
looks like.
can't somebody talk to the zoning people at St. Croix County and say, hey, here's our issue, what can we do? I mean, I'll do it, I don't care.
like, we should be just grandfathered
It
in
should
at this
be
point.
a very
It's been this
simple,
It's been this long. Let's just
your
grandfather
property
us in.
lines haven't changed, your use hasn't changed, it was an error.
Yeah, I haven't reached out to anyone. We just got this today. So that's where the cost was incurred. And again, I look at Cedar Corp as similar to CISA, where if you as a city don't have access to some of these other agencies, you use them as to get some of these. And I don't know fees. I don't know if there's licensures. I don't know. I know the CISA part of it. And that's just an analogy. What I would say is, again, when Derek and I were talking with the city today, they threw that out there and I said, well, I have it on the agenda. I'll throw it and inform the board and then they will tell us what to do, advise.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to, I mean, it's clearly, the city owns the zoning and all of those things, it's clearly a city error, and from what I could tell, right, we don't tell them what to zone us. And so we can choose not to take any action or to split the cost. Obviously, it behooves us to get the rezoning, so we.
But they still have to go through the meetings. So we still don't, they still have to,
When's their next meeting?
when was their next?
Well, I know like in the spring, like we're a TIF district, the board, the district has to be represented. So I go to those meetings and it's part of the commission, planning commission. I have not seen a schedule with this meeting. I think they would have to call a special commission meeting to do this, but again, it puts us at a little disadvantage, from a standpoint of our track equipment is out. And I want to get the container so that we can paint it and make it look nice and put our track equipment in. The fact that we've been rezoned or a residential for decades or forever for that matter, I have no idea and nobody's caught it, but.
I think what it boils down to is this the school's responsibility in any way to pay for rezoning? And in my opinion, it's not.
No.
So it's not something we need to even worry about. Therefore, if we know what a governmental, zoning would be, we would be zoned governmental use. What is stopping us from putting a container on the property and ignoring what the city is saying because of their error?
I'm looking for direction from the board.
But that's not really clean. I mean.
Well,
Well, no, but we've done it, and if it wouldn't have come up, we would have gotten it, and it
Sure,
would be
right.
sitting down there and we're using
Right.
it.
But it's an obvious error.
It's
This has
a-
never been residential.
huge-
It's just a matter of paperwork getting done.
yes.
Literally.
But if we don't do it, school boards in
Which
20
doesn't
years are
fall
gonna
on
say,
ours.
what were those guys doing? We at least found it.
I'll be dead by then, so I'm okay.
I do plan to reach out to the county, just to learn more, because I don't know. But in the same regard, we don't have control over the zoning, to Scott's point, and so, I don't know, I was not at the meeting, I don't know the discussion. And obviously Cedar Corp didn't even submit this until we got it, so, you guys are just, kind of give me some direction on how you'd like to proceed.
What I'm hearing is no action on the approval to split the cost with the city. What do we wanna do for the container and moving that forward?
I think we need to follow through with it. We need that, and we don't know how long the needs are gonna get pushed out in rezoning. We don't know how long that's gonna take.
Well, I
And
wonder,
if they come up and say, nope, now you can't have it, okay, well, then,
The container is, to your point, portable.
well, that's
so
what I
we're
mean,
in
it's portable, it's
violation.
it's not in
You're
just
gonna put it on
one
your
spot, like we
Yes.
have,
Oh, wait, you're probably residential.
bring it over, we can do it.
But if he's not the city, he's not the city.
Yeah, he's not in the city, though.
Don't know.
He's on a
Your
different,
brand, your
he's
brand
on
is
a
spot
different
on.
level, he's in a different township.
but I guess if we're asking the city and we're saying we don't wanna pay for it, and maybe they tie it into the next time they have to rezone something significant, do we just need to get a memo or something that just, whatever they need to, just let us buy the.
Well, we're not really
thing, it's in
asking the
process.
city, because it's been
Just
such
what
an
we need to do
oversight,
further
we're
research
just.
to figure out why we need to pay for this.
Yeah.
And the zoning
Right,
that
that's
we
what I'm
don't feel
saying.
comfortable
Yeah.
splitting the cost right now until we get more information.
Because right now, I mean, it's,
But get an agreement so we can
No
buy it
one's
and not have to
sponsored,
get rid of it in 2 years or whatever. Cause who knows how long it's gonna take the
Well-
city to do it if they're not getting paid to do it.
But because of the nature of this entity, we won't be getting rid of it in 2 years.
Right.
We should be zoned governmental use,
yeah.
so they
It's a
can't
no-brainer.
rezone it and say that we're residential. So in my opinion, we move forward with doing business as we do business, assuming we're zoned governmental entity, put the buildings in place that we need to use for our operation, and let the city catch up with their error that's been there for who knows how long.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have an interim agreement with the city though. That's the right thing to do, in my opinion.
Like some MOU or something.
Yep.
It's not a bad idea, and it probably is a proper way to move, but if we get pushback from the city, then what do we do?
Cause that's really what we asked them originally was, can we have an
Yes.
exemption because
Mhm.
we're not residential?
Yeah.
And then it led
And we're-
to this.
And
So
I-
yeah, it's not
I
like
talked to
pointing
them.
fingers, we're not pointing blame at them, we're not pointing blame at, and I think they completely understand the, but this is actually, it's
Yeah.
kind of a big deal.
When I talked to the
When you
mayor-
took a look at taxes, like, or your zone, I mean.
When we talked to
everything.
the mayor, I did ask him, I said, are you okay with me moving forward, knowing we're gonna be making the change? And he said, would you please hold off based on Cedar Corp? And so this was the follow-up.
I think it would be respectful to say that we don't feel we need to pay for it. You know, if it takes time for the city to do it, to wrap it into their next zoning or whatever, but we'd like to agree to a memo of, you know, exemption that would, you know, allow us to install until it's updated.
Just giving them a heads up, so they were gonna.
I mean,
A letter of intent.
just clear communication with them, like they're writing.
Do you want a motion for that, or do you just want it recorded as, that was the discussion?
No, I'm good, I think. I don't have it as approval.
And then I think I will reach out to the zoning at St. Croix County and,
That's actually,
I
I
will-
believe it's Dave Cheez-It.
yeah, and what exactly does this entail? Cause is it just a matter
He's a
of
good guy.
$450 to, transfer it over because that's what it is and there's an error? Or is it all the Cedar Corp?
So, so based on governance, I don't have it set for approval. Now, you can always approve something within, but based on that and based on us being recorded and this is archived, I feel I have enough to proceed with, as long as you guys are in agreement with the conversation you just had. And I will reach out to to obviously the city, but also the county.
Okay, I'm seeing a lot of head shaking, so.
All in agreement to ask them for a bit of time. And then we can move forward with putting the container when we want.
All right. Letter M is simply a recap of all the information. I didn't want to muddy up the resolutions that are next. So this is just a recap of our work session and all the discussion. We met for 3 hours, as you guys know, and so all the information is there. Nothing you have to do. The next are the resolutions based on the outcome of that meeting and requested a referendum resolution. And after meeting with Quarles, those are the resolutions and word for word. So now it's in your hands in terms of our referendum.
Alright, so last week we discussed, I think around the financial piece, we reduced the amount from the survey request, 900,000. You said that was a bit more than they were looking for. We reduced to 750 and for 4 years is what the resolution shows based on our discussions.
So a couple of points that I want to make, especially with the newspaper here. This has the tax impact. This newspaper, the tax impact is 0 for the $750,000 operational. It will go this fall with this approval. We are working on, or I'm working on publication in terms of telling that story. That story will be in front of you at the work session when we will look to meet at the beginning of August. But I think the biggest pieces to this resolution is to what Derek said. The 900,000 asked by the survey was somewhat, wasn't necessarily, it was very close in terms of the approval based on 90% community taking the survey. And so after the Bear presentation, the amount was moved to 750,000. The rationale behind why will be outlined. There's multiple reasons behind that, from the state to the operations of the district and to keep the current programming that we have. With that, again, the tax impact is at 0. And we're looking at a mill rate of roughly $7, which again is preliminary based on the information that we have. So everything is in the public content for both resolutions. Clerk Miller and President Oberly, you're asked to sign the resolutions if approved. Otherwise, everything else is there.
And one question or thought, naturally after our work session, but having a 4-year duration on the referendum crosses 3 state budget cycles. And that 4th year of the referendum is where our fund balance gets to the point where we need to basically show the revenue the first year after the referendum to maintain a decent fund balance in year 4. Could we shorten it to 3 years so that it better aligns with, the potential next ask for a referendum and also aligns better with the biennial budget from the state? And then we can, that first year, show a 0 revenue, do our defeasance and not be concerned about fund balance year 4 because we're in a better spot year 3.
So to your question, I actually asked Baird that. We went through the model based on 3-year, 4-year, and 5-year. And I said, please tell me the difference between them. And they were pretty adamant in saying, do not do a 3-year because as soon as you approve this referendum, you will now start the process over again.
Right.
In addition, because of your circumstance and the timing of a capital referendum that you plan to go to because of facility needs. The 5-year is more symbolic, similar to kind of it's the odd. Does it always match up with the biennial? No. So it's kind of that concept of the middle of the road within 4 years. And so within the recommendation, which I'll bring up, that's where, again, I'm relying a lot on Baird, but if you look at right here, where we go to operational to get our finances to where they need to be. And again, and the newspaper does a nice job of this, but 80% of the districts are in the same boat as us. And so Glenwood City has yet to go to an operational, but there's many reasons of why we're in this position. A lot of it is this graphic. So the plan would be this, where there's no referendum. If you were to take 2 3 years, Jordan, you basically would take this out and we would look to go to back-to-back referendums and move this up based on biennial.
Right.
And that's the part where, again, I wish I had more information on what is going to happen in the biennial. I think to Marquez's point, there is a multi-billion-dollar surplus, and that is going to have to be addressed. And unfortunately, it's going to be addressed because of a political environment instead of a need environment. So, again, you have the ability. Unfortunately, the resolution has to be done before the 25th. But that is what was told to me in terms of when I asked the 3, 4, and 5.
But on that similar note, if because of the 325 max per student, which is what drives a lot of the need for these districts, including us, to need to ask for more money or the approval of the exceed limit. If the state budget does change so that they are changing that limit to a higher threshold, and we approve this 4 years, we could go forward and then not take some of that money because we're getting additional funding from the state.
Yeah. When I come to you in the fall with the revenue cap sheet that will show summer school, will show Fund 80 levy, et cetera, it will have an amount on that revenue cap sheet that I will present to the community meeting. And then we have the finance where the board approves it. And yes, what you're doing is you're giving, the referendum is the authority for the board, you, to take $750,000 and use it. Now, you can come up shorter than that, as Marquez talked about. You could set it at 300,000 and say, you know what, public, you gave us the authority of 750, but based on our budget projections, we only need 300,000. Now here's where the mill rate is. We can pay off some more funds. That is the flexibility. So within our story, that's a big part. It's the authority. It's not we need 750. It's the authority so that we can still continue with our programming.
Yeah, I think that's the hard part of the year 1 budget, right? Is we're showing that revenue in year 1 because we're extending all the way to year 4. But something in that budget's going to change. It should change, hopefully changes. But the challenge is if we spend it all in year one, we can't unspend it, right? Because we're padding fund balance to get to year 4 based on the uncertainty of state funding. So it's,
And I would
Yeah, it's
reiterate
tough.
that one point where, okay, we have 2.5 million in our fund balance, 28%. We have roughly 7 million of facility needs that were outlined by 2 organizations, consultants. And that's the part where I understand where Jordan's coming from in terms of you have a bigger, you have 28% fund balance versus 15, but where's the 5 million gonna come from to redo some of the needs that we have?
I just think that the fiscal responsibility feedback is a big part of that. So I want to make sure that we got it now so that we've got it for capital, right? Because asking for an operational referendum twice, won't help that messaging, is my big fear.
I think we're ahead of the game because unfortunately, there's been districts that have went to capital and then come back and say, oh, now we need operational. And that's where the community feedback is very negative, and rightfully so. So I think we're on the right path in terms of our thinking, operational first, and then the capital. And then whatever is left, there is some low-hanging fruit in terms of low-hanging facility needs that we have. And again, like I told our staff, our custodial staff, they've done a great job, but I think we're showing the public that you invest in us, we're gonna take care of our stuff.
And there's the benefit of defeasance, we're positively aided, we get everything that we pay down in debt, we get the more state funding in future years.
And Patrick Gover executes on, spending fund balance based on last year's results.
We're trying, it's just and that's where Baird is huge, and you guys saw that, just the mechanisms to pay off debt, and it's truly a chess match. It's there's strategic pieces behind that, and that's where our job and my job is to use those resources to make the best decision possible.
Discussion, anyone wanna entertain the motion for the resolution? Authorizing school district budget to exceed revenue limit by $750,000 per year for 4 years. A motion by Nicole, do we have a second? Second by Scott. Any further discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by nay. Resolution is approved. And then P kind of goes hand in hand. This is the resolution for providing referendum election on the question of the approval of a resolution authorizing the school district budget to exceed revenue limit.
And this is the verbiage that goes on the ballot.
So we go to P. Where is the actual?
So you would just, the verbiage is right here. And for.
Oh, that is, okay.
Yep, so, you could say as printed.
Okay.
This is directly from Quarles as far as the wording. This is not me.
Okay.
Because I was not gonna screw this up.
So we'll approve this, and then have we go through legal yet, or have we already gone through?
We've gone through legal,
Okay.
so everything that you're seeing, is conducted by legal over the weekend.
Okay.
Or from last Monday. And so, yes, everything is from Quarles, which works. At the next meeting, you will, see that bill, which is roughly around $3,000, to do this process. But this is the statute process.
Anyone want to entertain a motion? A motion by Jody, do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Scott, any discussion on that one? Wise, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by nay. Motion is approved. That gets us to sharing of communications. I think we got some thank yous. The first one from Clayton Hoffman, Russell Meyer Scholarship Committee. Thank you for the generous gift in which my education will be advanced. Having community members believe in students is a pillar of a strong city. I will I will use this money for tuition at St. John's University, where I will be majoring in finance on a pre-law term.
Somebody asked me if cursive was part of our curriculum, and maybe that question is relevant now.
Yeah, this one, it's handwriting similar to mine, so I can't be too great. The next one from Haley Shoney, Glenwood City School Board, thanks so much for awarding me a scholarship. I truly appreciate your generosity and support. It's been my journey in cosmetology school. This will help ease the cost of tuition and all my supplies. Thank you for believing in me and helping make this opportunity possible. With gratitude. It is amazing.
Much better than I could.
Next one's from Joe Behrens. Christie, thoughtfulness means a lot to us, more than we can say, and our warm appreciation comes with this thank you note today. And the last one is creative from Burley Reba. Glenwood City School Board, thank you, school board, for all you did over not only my high school years, but all of my education. I'm very thankful to be awarded the Russell Meyer Scholarship. I appreciate all that you guys do to make our school a better place each day. Thank you, Burley Reba. So, you can see that money well
Say that and
spent,
put
that you
that,
can use
yeah,
it.
we need to put that in. We
Yeah,
did.
nothing to waste.
I love it.
I think that gets us through communications. Scheduled meetings, do we need to take any action for August 10th or?
I would like to recommend, and I've already done a preliminary, agenda, and so I just wanted to make you aware. As far as the date, nothing has been narrowed down for the purpose of this meeting. Sorry, let me log in again. I'm looking at the week of August 10th.
Right.
I'm at a legal conference, and then I'm taking a couple days the following week with my family. The preliminary draft, and again, it could be any night that week. This is a Monday, but here's the items that we are looking to address. The oversight, they're part of the high school handbook, which I emailed you. The United Healthcare Plan design, the bus leasing, I should have something so that we go and move forward with that. So we have a sub bus. The approval of the dental plan design, the scope and engagement, which this is the bill for the referendum that you just approved. And Ken just making that in front of you. And then I have a rough draft, but I wanted a work session input from the board, to what our publication looks like. And then when I go to area town meetings, city council meetings, we all have the same story of why we're headed down this path. Case in point, I met with a future employee, and he said, if I knew those things, I could, correct some people. So we'll talk about that. Then the compensation, I'll have everything ready to go for you, so we can start the year in that system, or the numbers are in the system. And then I have been working diligently on creating our employee handbook. I spent roughly 8 hours yesterday working on it. It's been a work in progress, but we will officially have a employee handbook to address all those unknowns that we have here, from support staff to professional staff to everything in between. So that will be ready to go and instituted for our staff this year. And then any other item that may come up in the meantime.
So both August 10th or the 12th work for me. Anybody have any conflicts?
I likely will not make the 10th and the 12th will be questionable. I fly back from Switzerland and I'm probably gonna have some jet lag, so. Maybe the 12th, I could get there, but the 10th for sure I'm not.
It's one of the worst excuses.
Uh-huh.
Terrible.
That'll be good.
I won't be available that week either.
I'm good with either night.
I'll be hiking in the mountains of Wyoming.
I should be fine doing.
Okay, so we got 4, and don't know Tony's schedule, but we could have 5.
Is there a preference on the 10th versus, it can be 10, 11, 12? Whatever works.
Do Monday.
I was just gonna.
Yeah.
Said 10, 11, 12, it sounded like all 3.
No, not all 3.
I mean, the 12th, if we needed to be just an extra, I could make it do. The 10th, I know I won't. So
Well,
if you wanted to plan
there
for
is
Wednesday,
no-
then in case.
There's nothing in there, the budgets are always the one that needs majority of the board. And so we have no resolution that we have to approve, so we're okay as long as we have a quorum.
3.
And all of you know exactly what we're talking about, so. And if you have ideas or thoughts that you want me to share with the board, contact Derek or myself, and we'll pass those on.
Did you have a preference on Monday or Wednesday, or maybe we just do Wednesday?
Yeah, do you
then?
Patrick, do you have?
Nope,
Well,
I'll make whatever work.
Let's do Wednesday then, just in case.
That's our first,
I could send
new
my husband
teacher.
by then.
Yeah,
So the 12th, I'm hearing the 12th?
12, yeah.
Okay,
We got an item for Jody's presentation on vacation pictures.
Yes, yes, slideshow.
that's all I have.
5:30 for,
Or 5, or.
Yes, we'll keep consistent. 5:30 will be our start time from now on unless otherwise noted.
Last item, motion to adjourn.
oh,
We got a motion, we have a second? A second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by nay, meeting adjourned.
Jody, to your point, it's still,
It is still light out, it's great.
Good
And hopefully it's just a little cooler out.
You want these signed too, the meeting minutes?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember signing. Oh, yeah. I'll do it. Okay.
Yep, you've signed some. Yep, whenever you see them in the consent, you'll have them in the folder to sign.
Mine is at that.
No, you're going back.